So, as y'all know, as a young Fuji, I used to go to London a lot. And there was a show on television called Live with Jules Holland. And what I loved about this show was Jules would jam with musicians from all over the world. And he just felt like these musicians was something that y'all needed to see. And it always created the pulse of a new era. So I was like, I want my own versions of Jules Holland. So while I'm home, I get to talk to some of the most extraordinary people. So I want to tell you something, Rapsody. So when I heard you, I was like, I have to bar with her. My first initial reaction was like, where's the cipher? You know, where are we going? So I was like, you know how people be like, yo, I understand you, I understand your frequency. So yes. I think the only way to do that, I have to bar with you, like before we even get into like an interview. You want to bar with me? Like,
I guess we can bar. I mean, we hip hop. I'm gonna tell you, I ain't no freestyler, but I will bar.
But
we can
now
bar.
Let me tell you why I wanted to bar with you. Yeah. Because you are Shakespearean in the sense of how you take the English language and you articulate it and you flip it into the most amazing schemes. And so similar to like when Shakespeare was like, to be or not to be, for me, what amazes me about you, you see, like you're like, hold up, Clef really studied me. So let me tell you, what's amazing, you're gonna love this because I got so much stories for you, especially with MC Light, but we'll get into that. So what's amazing about me to you is just the way that you play with words. So for me, playing with words was survival. Like coming from Haiti, not being able to speak English, then being raised in Marlboro projects and watching my cousins get killed, stabbed, all kind of things, being part, you know, wearing my Haitian flag on the right side of my pants, like, y'all gonna learn who we are. Like, right. And then I saw two people like face to face and they were going at each other. And I told my man, yo, he's talking about this other person's mama. How come dude ain't drawing on him? And he's like, yo, that's called battle rap. And I said, what do you mean? He says, they're jousting with words. So I was like, okay. I was like, yo, if I learn how to joust with words, I don't have to like slap box as much or draw what I have to do. So it was like, I was like, yo, if I ever see her, I was like, the only way she will understand me is I play with words just like you. Yes. So not in no freestyle sense, but just I am amazed by your literature.
Wow.
So I was like, when I see you, I was gonna tell you that.
Man, I told you, like, I'm honored and humbled to come from you because you are one of the people that I study that even influenced, you know, my love for the language and the play with word and the art and craft of it and the science of it. So to hear you say that, like, you know, it let me know I've done my just due. I did something right. But
you killed it, man, and I love it so much. So I'm gonna go into my fantasy space and I'm gonna bar for you.
Okay.
Because I know as long as I bar for you, I'm gonna feel good. You're gonna be like, okay, what I thought about him in 90 whatever era, it don't really matter because bars are timeless. Right. So I figure I would do the alphabets for you.
Oh, okay. Come with it.
All right.
I did an alphabet record back in 2014.
Wow, you wanna do your alphabets for me?
I'll remember that joint for nothing.
I was like, because you're such an incredible lyricist, so I was like, I have to take you to a scheme that I know that you would know that I would have to put time to understand your frequency, right?
Right.
So, A, I know B's and C's fellas. R.I.P. to Tookie. He got tooken by the Terminator. Now that's the ex-governor of California, Schwarzenegger. He could get these nuts for executing Crip leaders. Now, He on E or out his effing mind. G, it ain't hard to see. It's all a conspiracy. They caught my man in the H. Hit him with a Rico. A, he hit the freeway like freeway. Translation, just another pawn for the CIA. Cause where I'm from, you either dunking like Dr. J or get caught up in a drama with a K and get slayed. My El Chapo boys, they will bring the drama to him like Tay-Rock would say. They would carve a M in him and oh, mama screaming, not my boy. His mob deep, but he ain't P. The havoc cost them the morgue. Now, wait for my cue before y'all leave the booth, or you are gonna see this S on your T make you woozy woo from all that blue. You ain't catch that. I told Superman before he take flight, wait for my cue, cause his weakness is kryptonite and all that blue, that's kryptonite. And if people are wondering why my voice is sounding a little haunting, that tells of the kryptonite. Now I'm at the W. They setting up my suite. Dude working on punchlines, making it hard for me to compete. I ran for president. They considered my setups a threat. That's why they was dying for me to do a speech in Harlem so they could set me up like Malcolm X. Trooper done stopped me. I told them, don't ask why. In the stash box, I keep a Glock, cause you already know they killing. And I told him I'm a rock star. He like, what that mean? I told him I keep a axe like ZZ Tops. Bars.
Yo!
Rapsody, I had to bar for you, yo.
Yo,
I had to bar for
honored.
you.
Yo, where is that gonna live? That need to be out in the world. People don't.
I had to bar for you.
It's a select few that still appreciate the craft in that way. Like, it's so layered and creative, and that's the beauty and the art of the culture that I love so much. Like, you inspire me now. I wish I had came prepared.
Nah, you don't have to be. That was like in my dream. I was like, cause you know how certain people could be like, I appreciate you. So my way of telling you I appreciate you was just barring for you, because that's how ill you are and how you take your words. And I noticed, like, coming up, you was a Jehovah's Witness.
Yes.
My daddy was a preacher. So I was also raised in the church. So take me back as far as you want, because there's a little you and a little me that's sitting there and they tuned in. What was the come up like, and how did you start getting into the words? Like, what was because I know how Jehovah's Witness is, and how did that go from the rhyming, you know, how did that work out? Break it down to me.
Right. I think I gotta start when I fell in love with music first. I gotta start there, like, just the art of music. Like, I fell in love with Michael and just music, and I think that's where it started with, you know, I love what he talked about, where he really reflected what was going on in the world, like songs like Heal the World, They Don't Care About Us, you know, I could go on and on, Black and White, Will You Be There, and just how he described love in the world. I fell in love with the language first. As well as, you know, my mom and dad were big on taking us to the library, so they made sure we read, and I would read, and I fell in love with the imagination, you know, and making your own world and painting pictures. So when I got into hip hop, you know, I'm in North Carolina and I live in the country, and it's quiet. You know, you go outside and it's a lot of woods, it's a lot of field. It's not like a major city where I could grow up and turn any corner and see different type of actions, different cultures. So I felt like I had to kind of create my world through music. You know, I fell in love with hip hop. I remember Method Man's You're All I Need with Mary J. Blige. It's one of my favorite records, one of my favorite videos. And just to see that video, I'm just like, yo, this looks like a whole new world for me. It's so much action. MC Lights, Poor Georgie, the way she told the story of a dude that was drunk, and, you know, he ends up dying at the end, and just that whole story, I'm just like, yo, this is beautiful. And at the time, I think what played into my love for hip hop and, you know, that being my therapy and my escape was, you know, I'm one of 5 kids and I'm next to the last. but I'm the last girl grandchild, and there were no girls around my age. So the boys and my brother and my cousins, they would go play, and my mom was like, you can't go with them today. So I kind of had to create my own world for me in a sense. So I did it through creativity. I listened to music. Me and my dad would sit up and watch Video Soul and MTV Raps together and record it on VHS. And I just fell in love with this imaginary space of where music could take me anywhere in the world. And that's where it began for me, like, hearing Illmatic, hearing Reasonable Doubt, and it's so layered and coded. And I'm like, that metaphor is crazy that they're using to this. You could take a whole scenario and put it in 2 bars. Mm-hmm. And that was the challenge that I like. You know what I'm saying? For me, I like math, and to me that was like math. Like, okay, to get to X, I gotta plug here and whoop-de-whoop. Like, that's what it was for me. As well as, when I grew up and got into college, I was heavy into Def Poetry Jam. And that's a whole nother, with music, you gotta fit it into a rhythm and a flow, right? With Def Poetry Jam, it's just free, Yes. And to come from a poetry background, studying Nikki Giovanni, Def Poetry Jam, and then the music, and trying to put those together, with the freedom of expression of poetry and how creative with no bounds you could be, and tying that into, rhythm and bars. It was plug and play for me, like, and I think that's where it started. It just gave me a voice, and it was something I connected with. That was a journey for me, in a nutshell.
Yo, what's dope about it is I'm looking at your eyes. I mean, the audience could hear the audio, you feel me? But I'm looking at you. And when you're like Illmatic, and the way you talk about like the culture, the music, literally takes me through a time. And you mentioned MC Lyte.
Yes.
That song that you like, that was Lauren's first extra in a music video.
Lauren was in that video? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yo, that's crazy. Lyte has never told me that. I never heard that anywhere. Now I gotta go back and see if I can find her.
Yeah, so me and Lyte I love very much. We actually go way back, right? Me and Lyte go back to the first play that was supposed to go to Broadway. Years ago, before Hamilton, me and Lyte was kids. We was in a play called Club 12. It was a Shakespearean story of the 12th night. And what happened if we took the 12th night and we put it in the streets? And then so literally I wrote like a lot of the music for the play, you know what I mean? Like a musical. But you talking about like 25 years ago, like way before Hamilton, anything, you see what I'm saying to you? Mm-hmm. So I go that far back with Lyte and her being amazing. And another connection we have is Lauren was doing poetry. She was singing, but she also was doing poetry. And so it was the idea of saying, okay, these are the 2 people that you're about to listen to first. And one was MC Lyte and the other was Queen Latifah at the time. So it was a conversion of how you're gonna take poetry and now flip it into rhymes, And I was like, yo, these are the blueprints. Just go study how they doing it. Because I said, when they come in a way that the world has to pay attention to it. And she definitely went and studied that. And just watching how you were a student of the culture, my first music video, I was an extra for Eric B. and Rakim, Don't Sweat the Technique.
Yo, what is the hip-hop history is happening right now? This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is like, what?
Yo, but do you know what's funny though? When you are extra, you're not famous yet. Do you get me?
Yes.
Like, so we're not talking, I'm saying like, so to your point, so the song called Don't Sweat the Technique, you're gonna bug out when you see it. But I remember going to see Rakim at the House of Blues. And I'm like, yo, I'm a fan of yours. I'm a Rakim crazy. I'm like, yo, I was in your music video. He coming to see, I'm like, yo. And he like, word God. And I think like it trips a lot of people out because when they go back, that's why when we talk about the culture, it's just the idea of like, when you're starting out, you just want to be heard for the culture because you feel like you got something to say within the community. So I definitely find that amazing. I know the reason why I wanted to talk to you is I feel like you're a leader. And me being born in Haiti and understanding, the Haitian. The curtain just fell. Yo, can we just keep going?
Yeah, we got to.
Because that's what makes this funny as hell.
That what makes it perfect.
So, we in the crib. Yo, I wish I could show you.
Let your light shine in.
Yo, let the light shine in, yo. Before the light started shining in behind the pool in the back, I wanted to talk to you about, I was saying you a leader, coming from Haiti, understanding the revolution of 1804, being like the first Black republic. So coming to the States, even when I was in school and they was teaching me Black history, and I was like, there's a whole thing missing in here, you know what I'm saying? And why we're not talking about that. So for you to take the stance that you take in hip hop today, and you being like the new era of what we call like an era that, it's almost like we could see Nina Simone, you feel me?
Yes.
Like, we could see like Billie Holiday, we could see those that are coming in and through the art. It's like we could see you. And so how is that coming up? Because it couldn't be easy. I know how the industry is. I know how, because the reason I mentioned the church earlier, because my daddy was a hardcore minister, and he was like, yo, you can't serve two masters at the same time. It's either you're going to serve God or the devil. And then so I had to hide doing circular music at a time, like, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of the greats that ended up making that transition from the gospel to what, was the music that we do today. So when I see you, I see a triumphant of a story that a little girl is sitting right now and she wants to hear how she can do it. So that's that point of view of how I'm asking you the question.
Wow. I forgot to even touch on the Jehovah's Witness part. I'm gonna double back on that for a second. Because it's funny you say that. I hid what I did for a long time. Like you said, you know how Jehovah's Witnesses are. You don't associate with the world and listen to secular music. But hip hop was such a part of me, and I knew the power in it. I went to school. I ain't talking about my rap, nothing. I didn't get baptized either, because once you get baptized as a Jehovah's Witness and you do something to the left that you're supposed to do, I was like, I don't want to go through the disfellowship process.
Exactly. That's right.
Right. I was like, yo, I know my heart, and I always go into the whatever I do, trying to do the right thing, and that's what I do with music. I came into an era too, like, I saw, how it was for Light and Queen. I saw from the outside. I don't know how it was from the inside, but from the outside, I know how it looked for Lauren and MC Light. And it felt like they had just so much range, and they had, more lanes and ability to be individuals and to really speak that. Like, hip hop then, everybody was more concerned about being themselves and being different and using their voice than it was in the era I came up with. In the era I came up, it was like everybody just wanted to be the cookie cutter version of whatever was popping. And that wasn't the culture that I love. The culture that I love, like you say, with hip hop, with Nina Simone and Billie Holiday and, Harry Belafonte and any and everybody was, to speak the times. Yeah, we can make music that entertains, but there's a lot going on in the world. Like, we have to be the voice of the voiceless. That's what hip hop is. What's going outside of our window? We are the griest, in a sense. Like, we have to document the times that we live in. So, outside of me taking the culture seriously, to say, like, for one, I want to be known as the best and study the culture and create at the highest level. But I also want to do what the culture is and speak for the people, speak of the people, speak to the people, and tell the stories. And it was super challenging because, you know, it's like, one, you know, I'm a woman, and I came up in a time where a lot of women weren't getting that light. You know, we had Nicki Minaj, and Nicki Minaj was doing Nicki Minaj, and, you know, she had that space. But for a lot of other women, I think when I really first started, it was myself, Jean Grey. You know, I think Bahamadia was still rocking. I could name a few ladies, but, you know, there was no lane for us, and so it felt like there was layers. First, I got to come in, I got to get respect. And then when you start to get a little respect, you know, people call you boring. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody listens to conscious rappers. And, you know, if you're not mentally strong and if you're not secure in what you're doing and understanding that, you know, me doing what I do, as long as I continue to do it, I will break through. Or, you know, if I don't, so what? You know, my purpose wasn't to get in it for myself, for money, or for fame. It was because I wanted to make great music, and I wanted to make music that would inspire people, that, you know, would speak to people, heal people. You know, I just wanted to make music that reflected a bunch of different emotions of whatever, you know, was happening around me. And it was challenging, you know, because you get caught up in the rat race of everything else, and, you know, the accolades, and, you know, am I worthy enough because I don't have these things? Or everybody that I grew up loving, you know, they made the music that, you know, I'm falling in love and I'm trying to make, but I'm not getting the same recognition. You know, am I not good enough? Like, what is it? So that was a mental space that I had to really work through, and I had to tell myself. And Ninth Wonder and Young Guru, my circle, you know, they were there to support me and remind me that this is a marathon, you know, and my story is not supposed to be like everybody else. And the people that listen, that the ears that you have, that's all you need. You can't be concerned with, you know, anybody else that doesn't listen, you know. But it was always bigger for me because, you know, you want to, in truth, and when truth is in music, you know that people can be freed by that, you know. And you know how it feels to be truly free. And that's what it was, you know. I just wanted to bring balance to the game and always give people a different perspective of what we are fed a lot of times through the business, you know, that doesn't speak for the culture. You know, I wanted to be the difference and have, you know, again, I wanted people just to mentally be free. And at the end of the day, you got to do what's true for you. You can't be led by what's true for the business. So that was the challenging part. And it's still challenging to this day, but, you know, we making some headspace, so.
Yeah, insanely making headspace, moving forward. I remember Jay-Z saying something that resonated. We was at Clive Davis' party, and he was getting honored. And he was like, Bob Marley don't got no Grammys. Bob Marley don't have no form of accolades. Like, while he's moving through this planet, he's just like spreading love, and he's doing what he's doing, and he created generational wealth for his generations to come, right? Because I think like some of us are like vessels, you know, and as a vessel, like you can't, Martin Luther King is a vessel. I seen Martin Luther King with a cigarette in his hand, and he had that look like, man, should I just give up today? You know what I mean? Like, people don't talk about that side of the struggle, like where you just be feeling like, man, Lord, why you done call me for this? Can I get a break? Can I get a day off? You know what I mean? So, but you're amazing. We're watching the climb. We're watching the rise. And the accolades are given. The trumpets are sounding, just so you know. You know what I mean? I think it's definitely a sign from God. Look, the curtain done went down. The light done came out. So we definitely... So another thing I wanted to ask you. So like, my name is Nel Us Wyclef Jean. So Nel Us Wyclef Jean. Like, so that's like French Creole. But... You know, and when I say French Creole, like some people say, hey, it's Français, you know, but I be like, no, it's Creole, it's straight Creole. And in high school, I took my first name. So, you know, we going through our hip hop phases.
Yeah.
So, and we going through our 5% phases. So we got like different things. So now in high school, I took my first name, Nell. And then I was like, yo, I'm about to call myself Nelly Nell. That's going to be my name, right? So then I did Nelly Nell, and then I started, studying like 5%er, you know what I mean? And then I was like, I'm gonna change my name from Wyclef to Walik, right? So then I became like Walik, and peace to the gods, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And these are all parts of my name, and then I'm Wyclef Jean. So I wanted to ask you, Rapsody, was that always the name? And if not, what was the name and how did you get there? Because the name definitely sticks, you know what I'm saying?
Yo, okay. Before I landed on Rapsody, I only had one other one, and it was just a shortened version of my name. My birth name is Marlena Evans. And all, my cousins, they would call me Lena. So I just put an E on it. I was like, Lena E, whatever.
Lena E. Okay, you see? That's like, part of that thing. That's that thing.
Like Sheila E, like
exactly.
Lena E, you dig?
That's what I was looking for.
Straight up. I was like, yo, cool. But then I got in the phase like, nah, and I'm thinking like, yo, all these rappers that I like, like Busta Rhymes, and you got I'm having Nas. Well, Nas is short for Nasir, but you got Jay-Z, Queen Latifah, which that's her real name too. I don't know, but I'm thinking like, no, I need an alias. Busta Rhymes, I need an alias. So while I was going through my Def Poetry phase, this was before, like at this time, I was more so writing poetry than doing lyrics and trying to rap, because that wasn't a real reality for me yet. And I was in this hip hop group at the time with a bunch of artists, and I was the only one that didn't necessarily DJ or do graffiti or rap, so I was like, well, I do poetry. So I was like, I need a name. So I actually was reading the dictionary, and when I read the Webster definition of it, poetry spoken with great emotion, I was like, yo, that's what poetry is. That's what music is for me in general. So I'm gonna just run with that. And I remember my boyfriend from high school, we were friends at the time. I was in college and he called a checkup on me. He was one of the few people that I told like, yo, I wanna be a rapper, and if I'm ever a rapper, I'm gonna call myself Rapsody. He started laughing. He was like, that's whack. And I was like, you crazy, that's hot.
Yeah, exactly.
But I called myself that more so because I thought I was just gonna be a spoken word artist. You know what I'm saying? Like, though I knew I wanted to be an MC, it wasn't a reality. I couldn't figure out how I was gonna get from there to really, pursuing and living it, and doing it. And here we are. And to be honest, like, I think every day, like, I really want to just call myself Marlena. Like, there's something in just people just knowing who you are straight up, and that's one of the things I'm like, I done came too far though. It's a brand now. But now
we all know, like, we got it. It's the brand, it's Marlena,
Yeah.
Marlena, yeah, we got you.
Yeah. Yo, I used to work at Food Lion, and there's this group called the Wildflowers, and every day for like 10 times a day, they had this song called the Three Marlenas that would come on.
Oh wow.
1, 2, 3 Marlenas. But,
wow, that might be a sample.
Yeah, help me up, Clef.
I am. This brings me to my last question. We're heavily connected. I think that you're like, yo, I barred up for you in the beginning just so you could hear the frequency. That was like me acknowledging you. And as far as like production, you spoke about math earlier. And so in my hood, they call me the thug nerd. So, okay. Because I'm the one, like, I literally was the kid that would go to Samash and sit there, read about the velocities, the sine waves, and all of that stuff, and bring it back home. Your style of production, I also heard that, you play in this space too.
Yeah, and probably in a different way than you, but
I know I heard about a phone thing, about you recording on a phone. Record.
Early when I first started, the very first time I started MCing, this was before like iPhones was really popping like that. So I went to where you couldn't do voice notes, and I ain't know nothing about microphones, setting that up. So I went to Walmart and I got a tape recorder, and I would ride around in the car. I sit in the car and I play a beat through the radio speakers. And I record myself rapping and the music in the background just to get a rhythm.
Genius.
Genius. That's how I started out early on. And I also tried to make beats for like a week. Before I started rapping, I went to Sam Ash. It was going out of business in Raleigh. And they had this beat machine. I don't even know what kind it was. It was like this big. Had it like maybe like 6 pads.
Something RZA probably got.
Probably. Exactly. A little version of it.
A little
version. And I couldn't figure that thing out for nothing. But, you know,
that's ill though. You just hit it. That by any means necessary, I promise you, when we went under with the COVID-19 thing, I was out of a studio, couldn't get to anything. They shut stuff down in Jersey. I promise you. I got a record called Distance the same way. Like, because when you have less to work with at a time, it's sometimes when the best stuff comes out. Because literally, think about it. Somebody tell you that you need a microphone, but why, really? Because as long as that frequency is going through that cassette, somebody gonna hear it. So
exactly.
That's definitely amazing. So definitely, you're a nerd as I am. So. In saying that, I look forward to, there's a word that I use in the studio, it's called catching a vibe. And
I'm with that.
I'm so excited that we met. I'm so excited that I got to bar up for you. I was like, that was my dream. And now I'm gonna do like RZA and go on my big machine and then whip up some stuff and just send to you and see if you catch it. Because I know your frequency.
You know my frequency, man. You know my frequency is.
I do.
It's an energy. It's a feeling. It's some soul. You know, it's you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know, I can't do empty music. It gotta have some musicality and feeling in it. You know, whatever that feeling is. Whether we on the it's the vibe. We going to Haiti and we by the waves and we bopping out. You know, we just doing something real soulful. But I'm excited about that for sure. I want to catch this vibe, this wave with you.
All right, we're going to catch it. I promise you that. And my last question, so I'm going to let you go. I'm going to jump back on my motorcycle. I love motorcycles. I'm going on a long ride. That's when I think. So, man, the climate that we in, you know, your last words to the folks. My daughter, 15, she came to me and was like, Daddy, I'm going to the protest with my mama. And we about to cross the Manhattan Bridge. And I caught myself for a minute, right? Then I was like, y'all go ahead. Because it was like, it's almost like I'm looking at myself because I remember when Mayor Bloomberg was cutting down the education program in New York. And I went and I marched, I got arrested, I went to jail, I did. And it's almost like I'm watching myself, but I could see the transition with the youth. It's a different energy out there. And I think like what Dave Chappelle says, like we've been doing what we've been doing for so long. Our job is to continue to do it. But now it's almost like it's conveyed inside of them. You know what I mean? And so how do they harness this energy in your opinion? And how do they push it and don't slow down and keep moving forward so that we get results?
Man, I think the biggest thing with this new generation is a couple of things. One is that access to information. You know, they have everything at their fingertips. And, you know, especially to the ones who are not us and who don't live our lives as Black Americans, they get to learn so much that they were taught that was wrong. You know, so now they have a different view and they like, yo, no, I want to be on the right side of history. So that's one thing, like just people's awakening in that sense to information. Two, I think, you know, internet and social media makes the world this small, you know, so we all are connected. And that energy is transferred even around the world, you know, you feel that vibe. And I think, you know, just knowing that you have a village of people who are with you and, you know, whether you look on, it's like in Portland, they getting down in Portland, like they going nutty in Portland, you know what I'm saying? And that's like, yo, I see how y'all moving. When I may not have known what to do before, like I have a point of reference, you know. I could reach out and see a Tamika Mallory, or I can go to Wyclef. You know, I have things to reference. I can go to YouTube and know how to move. And the youth, the thing about the youth though, they always fearless. You know,
that's right.
They still young and they haven't gone to the world enough where, you know, they're conditioned. You know, they just free out here and they got this new energy and they invigorated by it. So I think all of those things to play into that. But, you know, what's going to keep them going, I think, is, you know, that connection and sharing information and sharing stories and, you know, holding people accountable too. I've seen people, you know, be called out like, yo, like, what y'all worried about over here, that's not really important. We got to do better and do this. And sometimes you need that. Like, I think all of that is important, you know, with the fact that, you know, they do have, you know, legends like yourself, you know, Queen Latifah, Tamika Mallory, John Lewis, rest his soul. But, you know, I know he was a leader for a lot of youth too and teaching them. So, you know, I think that gap is bridged too. You know, I've heard stories, I think about, you know, conversations rather of people asking what was different with the civil rights movement. And they were saying, our parents were out in the streets and the kids were at home and we necessarily didn't have anybody to teach us because they was out there doing it. But, you know, now there's a bridge to the gap where, you know, we can show them the way and, you know, they have so much they can reference along with figuring out how they want to do it too. So, you know, I think that's all going to keep the movement moving forward. But I think the base and the biggest thing is the access to information and becoming aware. You know, like Gil Scott-Heron said, the revolution won't be televised because it starts in your mind. And as we continue to tell our truths, you know, the real truth of what everything is, and that's where freedom comes from, and that's where the energy to want to free people comes from.
Wow. Amazing. I'm sitting here as a selfish composer and producer. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am gonna sample that last 1 minute of yours, and that's how I'm gonna start a whole record. Like you was going.
I'm honored, bro. I've been learning a lot myself, so, you know, I'm just passing it forward because that's what it's about, you know, passing the information and not holding on to it.
All right, well, I love you.
I love you.
And I look forward to rocking with you. And keep it up. Keep inspiring us. And you're incredible. Thank you so much.
I love you too, legend. This is an honor for me.
Give you a virtual hug, baby.
Give it to me.
Till I see you in person.